Should the Saints bench Derek Carr? Woo! What a headline. We are here with the OTB boys, and Nick Underhill, I believe, will be joining them. So, insane idea. Like, there's no way you bench Derek Carr. Makes no sense. There's no reason to. Unless he is hurt, unless there's an injury, he's got to play. You can't bench him. Can't bench Carr. And it's one of those things where at the end of the day, we made a decision, and by we I mean Mickey Loomis, made a decision that Derek Carr was going to be the franchise quarterback, and he paid him as such. We're tied to that. Same thing Cleveland's kind of going through. Cleveland's going through a situation where they tied up $250 million in guaranteed money in Deshaun Watson. And I don't really care, and they don't really care if PJ Walker is better. They cannot get away from Deshaun Watson. If he's healthy, he has to play. Now, if there's some financial clause or whatever where if he doesn't play because of injury, they don't have to pay him, and they want to loophole it that way and not pay him, whatever. But straight up, just, we paid this guy, who are we going to start? You got to start the guy you paid for. You got to start the guy you went and got, and we went and got Derek Carr. So I'm not even saying that Jameis wouldn't do better. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that you can't take the chance. I'm saying that you can't give him the option. It is what it is. Carr will have to play. If he gets hurt and Jameis comes in and Jameis is good, whatever. It could happen, sure. But there's no way you can go get Derek Carr, sign him to whatever, and then 7 weeks into the season, bench him. That would be insane.
Nick Underhill at Nick_Underhill on Twitter. neworleans.football is the site. Banger after banger. Been kind of a banner year for neworleans.football. Not only did they force the Saints offense to start using motion more, they also, what was it? Well, the most recent thing is Nick got Mike Thomas to respond to a tweet in public, basically confirming that Derek Carr isn't going through his reads at all and that Chris Olave was probably getting undue blame for a play from last Thursday. There's one more that I'm missing, boys. What was the other one, Mario?
Trevor Penning.
Yeah, maybe point out that Penning sucked at run blocking. They were running constantly the other way, so now Penning got benched, which getting benched for run blocking is as damning of a thing that I can imagine for O-lineman's potential. Like, run blocking's easy. You should be able to do that no matter what. Either way, New Orleans football kind of controlling and influencing the Saints from afar. And the man behind it all is Nick Underhill. Nick, what's up, dude?
None of that's true. But
I mean, kind of.
I'll let you lie for me and build the brand, but
no.
Fine.
Yeah, look, I'll say this. I mean, I know T-Bob's kind of joking around here, but the Saints, and maybe it's because sometimes I wonder if it's because I'm so close to the situation, because I'm covering the team. I live in New Orleans. I'm talking to Saints fans. I'm reading Saints Twitter. I'm reacting to these videos. I read y'all's comments. I react to y'all's comments. But the Saints have to be the most rabbit ears team of all time. The players constantly respond to tweets and memes and critique. The coaches constantly talk about hearing criticism and hearing this and hearing that. I can't think of another professional team that is influenced by outside noise as much as the New Orleans Saints.
Oh, but it's also not true. I mean, correlation may not always equal causation, but what about when you point out that the Saints are using motion less than any team in the league? I think it was something around like 1%, and then the next game that's up to 36%. I'm just saying, it's a little funny.
We talked about that when it happened, and honestly, I hope it isn't the case, because how bad does that make the Saints look? How bad does that make the Saints front office or the Saints coaches look? That those guys can be there. Pete Carmichael can be there for 20 years. Dennis Allen can be around the league for however long he's been around the league. The players can be there. The Derek Carr can be a 8-9 year vet. Like, all these people can be there, and they're just completely oblivious to things unless New Orleans football or whoever tweets something or makes a video about it or whatever else. Like, do you think there's a beat writer in the universe that can make Bill Belichick change his game plan? Do you think there's a beat writer on earth that would influence Andy Reid's decision making or scheme? Like, how bad is our coaches if they're shifting what they're doing on a week to week basis because of what they're seeing on YouTube and what they're seeing on Twitter? Like, that to me, it's kind of one of the conspiracy theories where it's fun to talk about and play along with. But if it is true, the Saints coaching staff and front office is in a worse spot than we could ever imagine.
Like that. What's not so funny is the article you released breaking down all the third downs, and it just seems like it is an LSU defense against Ole Miss level disaster right now, Nick. A lot of it is around Derek Carr. A lot of it also seems to fall at the feet of Pete Carmichael. How do you assign the pie of blame here?
It's both, like you said. I don't know that you can kind of just point to one and not the other. I think it's a little bit of both guys. I think some of the design of the offenses we've been saying week after week after week, it has been, just not beneficial to gaining yards, I guess is the way I put it. It's just the same stuff over and over. It doesn't make sense. And there's a handful of plays where it's like 4 guys over the middle within a 10-yard area, just kind of like stacked in a straight line at the time of the throw. And it's just, all you need is kind of one guy standing there to cover everybody, and you can just start jumping routes because they're just all kind of stacked. And then you got like an isolation route on the outside, and it's like, oh, well, we'll go double this and let everything in the middle take care of itself. And there you go. Like, there's your defense. It's just, it doesn't make a lot of sense. I think some of the stuff with Derek Carr has been pretty bad too. I thought the JT O'Sullivan video on YouTube kind of breaking down his performance.
I still haven't watched that, dude. I heard it.
So we obviously watched part of that here, watched the first half of it. We have a video of that on the channel. It is interesting how much of what the Saints are doing is out in the open now. I mean, as far as like Carr getting broken down by O'Sullivan, and we've talked about it a million times. I'm sure neworleans.football has talked about it a million times. What he's doing wrong, the Pete Carmichael problem. We have a million channels, videos on this channel about Pete Carmichael. We've seen statistics that other people in the mass media are breaking out about Pete Carmichael and about the efficiency. The Saints are bad in one of the most public ways I've ever seen. They are getting criticized rightly on almost every phase. In almost every phase of the offense is getting crushed in the media, local and national. And it's crazy that we let this happen. And by we, I mean the Saints. We let Mickey Loomis let this happen. These are problems we had last year with the design and Carmichael and the offense and the scheme and all that. And then for Carr to come in, and as of right now, this has to be his worst year of his career. I mean, this has to be the worst he's been perceived as a pro in his career. Because in Vegas, it was still like, okay, there's some moments here, there's some stuff here. Who knows what the problem is? They're in games, they're a playoff team, or they're on the fringe of the playoff. Right now, he looks terrible. Carr looks lost. He looks absolutely lost out there. I mean, it's nuts how I was looking at the schedule today. I was looking at it today because I was trying to count what I had to do to get my Saints over 9.5 season win total ticket cashed. We basically have to win every game from here on out besides the Rams game, the Lions game, and the Vikings game. And it's crazy to think like, wow, we're talking about like before the season, we were talking about like, find me 5 losses, find me 4 losses, find me 5 losses on the schedule. And now you look at it like, man, find me 5 wins. Like this team, they need to get it sorted out quickly because the talent on the roster is propping up kind of how people look at the Saints. But the trajectory they're on, a couple more weeks like the Jacksonville game, people are going to be talking about the Saints as the worst team in the NFL.
It was fantastic. I got to get into that. Also, he's got quite the channel going there, JT does.
Yeah, JT.
Yeah, it's brutal. I mean, it's just kind of like a brutal assessment. And I don't agree with everything he said, but there's a lot of stuff that's just empirically true. Like, they're running, verts, and you're taking a 5-step drop, and he's just checking down before he's even looking down the field on certain plays. And then when you wonder why the receivers aren't running their routes at full speed, it's kind of like, well, are they being trained to do this kind of with the way the quarterback's playing? And look, that's not an excuse for the receivers. You got to go all out every single play, no matter what. But it's just kind of like when everything's kind of a mess, I think it's a little bit scapegoatish to kind of just point out and blame one player for everything And, I kind of feel like that's what was happening with Chris Olave. And I think it was a little bit, I don't want to say unfair because he deserves the criticism, but other people deserve criticism too. And I think the way it was kind of like handled and spoken about could have been done a little bit better. And that was a third down play too, where Carr just messed up the read. And well, I think what happened that he was supposed to go to Taysom, and I think Olave didn't run it out. And I don't know, this is just my opinion. I'm not reporting anything here. Just kind of looking at it, I feel like he got pissed off and launched the ball and just kind of gave up on the play. It was trying to make a point. I think it was kind of a heat of the moment thing. He just launches the ball down the field and then starts screaming at Chris, and that's kind of how it goes. And I don't think the optics of that are great either.
No, they're not.
Nick, what's the most surprising thing that has not gone right for the Saints this year? Of all the things that we talk about, because this was a team that had high expectations.
Oh, yeah,
in this
huge.
Room, we see the talent that they have. What's the most surprising thing to you that has not worked out in their favor yet?
Carr. I think for me, it's Carr, because we knew the scheme was ass. We knew Carmichael is a clown. We know he should not be in the NFL. So it has to be Carr, because Kamara has been good. Thomas has been good. Olave has been productive. He hasn't been as good as he might have been last year, but he hasn't been bad. You can't say he's been the most surprising. The offensive line could maybe be it, because I guess we didn't expect them to be the worst offensive line in the NFL. But I think for a franchise quarterback, for someone as celebrated as Derek Carr was, for somebody who people thought could elevate this franchise, I mean, he is right now. And maybe it's because I just watched that JT O'Sullivan video with y'all, but right now he is broken. He's bad. He's real bad. I mean, you watch like Derek Carr and you watch Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield looks like Joe Montana compared to what Derek Carr is doing. So in this small sample size of the season, the biggest disappointment has to be Derek Carr, especially if you throw in the fact of the whole leadership thing. Like, this guy's supposed to be a leader of men. This guy's supposed to be the leader of the city, king of New Orleans. And he's screaming at his players, slinging the ball out of bounds because he's frustrated, yelling at coaches. Like, the whole thing has been bad.
I think it's just kind of Carr not being average yet. I think it's just kind of all the issues in the passing game. It almost seems, when I sit here and like think about it, it almost seems impossible to me that we're having these conversations right now, and it's this kind of bad. Like, these are the things that you thought you'd be discussing with like Andy Dalton coming in, and it wasn't necessarily that. It was just kind of like a lack of talent in some stuff. There were some reads and stuff that got messed up, but it wasn't quite like this. And it's just the inability to get on the same page with the receivers and the quarterback and all that. It's just kind of been shocking to me. And it's a little bit hard to understand that they aren't just like okay at quarterback, because they got a top 5 defense right now. If you told me they had a top 5 defense, I would think that they'd be cruising and they'd have like the South pretty much sewn up by now.
Yeah.
They should have like that kind of lead. It should be theirs to lose, and it's just they aren't doing that, and it's just kind of mind-boggling, because he was supposed to be the guy they brought in and he was supposed to help make Pete Carmichael better, and they were supposed to be able to like send him out there and he could direct the offense a little bit and make these checks and get him into the stuff that worked and kind of take a little bit of command of the offense, which is what they like to have with Breeze. And it's just it's been the polar opposite of that, to the point where after 7 games, Dennis Allen's talking yesterday about how they have to change how the quarterbacks and the wide receivers meet. And it's just like, this is what you got to do at this point of the season. Like, he was supposed to be like the settling presence for this whole thing. And it's just it's been the opposite. And again, I think it's too simplistic to blame Carr. I've heard some stuff about some of the receivers just kind of, not being able to pick some of the stuff up in that. And I think that's part of the issue too. So it's a two-way street here, but this isn't what it was supposed to be. He was supposed to be the guy that kind of brought this all together.
Yeah, but look, the Saints, it'd be one thing if they were not good, or if they were like, average to below average, whatever. They're bad. And like Nick said, it's almost too simplistic to say they're bad. It's more like they're broken, or it's like inexplainable. It's something. It's just rotten. Like, I don't know if it's a player on player thing, if they don't like each other, if they can't pick stuff up, if they're on the same page. But you shouldn't have this many talented players on a team that was seemingly a quarterback away, and the defense is the top 5 defense in the league, and somehow the team is right there with like a bottom 4 team in the league. It really is like a mystery right now.
and it just hasn't happened.
Champ in the chat is kind of asking, or not. He's saying told you so. I'm asking to go full rumor here. Do you think a couple of weeks ago when Alvin Kamara and others were alluding to a lack of preparation that they were talking about Derek Carr?
No, I don't think so. No.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about that. No way. I just don't believe it. There's no way Carr can all of a sudden get that paycheck, get a second chance for a coach that drafted him, that he has a relationship with, come into a new team, and then right out of the gate, he doesn't prepare. Like if that was a rumor or something that he did in Vegas or Oakland, okay, maybe. But you don't all of a sudden change who you are when you get a chance like this. So I never thought it was Carr. You know, we said basically it can't be Carr, Thomas, Kamara, Demario Davis, Cam Jordan, Tyrann Mathieu, Marshawn Lattimore. Pretty much it cannot be those guys.
I mean, Alvin even specifically said he started naming numbers of guys that prepare. Four was one of them. So
okay.
I don't think it's a lack of preparation there. I think Alvin was talking to, some of the guys on offense. I think there's probably, I don't think it was just limited to players either. I think it was just kind of everybody in the organization, whoever kind of that message hit. I think it kind of went to him a little bit. And, 2 weeks later, Alvin's kind of just talking about game planning and stuff too. So I think it's just I just think it's general frustration with the organization top to bottom. When he made those comments.
And you're married, Nick. I mean, you're married to Derek Carr, knowing what his contract is, knowing kind of what you have behind him. I mean, this isn't something that's going away. So what do you do?
Good question. I think let's say that Derek Carr is not the guy. Let's say right now in the front office they've made the decision Derek Carr is not the guy. The only thing I think you can do is draft a quarterback this year and let him sit behind Carr, let Carr play this year and next year, and then eat the rest of the contract. Find a way to eat the rest of the contract. Find a way to, take a chunk of it out, whatever. But you are married to him for at least 2 years. But you need to start planning while you have Carr in place. You need to go ahead and get that next guy up. You don't want to let Carr play out his time. Then you draft a quarterback. Then you got to play a rookie quarterback. Right now, if we're drafting, 10th overall, 11th overall, something like that, and you can scoop up the second, third quarterback on the board, I think you got to do it. And you just go that route.
I didn't know where that was going at first when you said you're married and stuff. I had no idea.
He is married. I mean, technically, yeah.
No, they are. There's nothing you can really. You kind of got to make it work out. So, like last week when T-Bob's like, "Is it time to start Jameson?" I'm like, "Nah, like it's just because they can't. Like they can't do.
Yeah, you cannot.
You can't go to that move yet. I don't think. I think it would be a complete disaster. You got to figure this out. You got to find a way to make it work. And as stupid as I feel saying this, like I still think that there is. Like I still think that the stuff we believed before could at some point come to fruition and things settle in. And I've been talking to people and they said like Carr's first year in the system kind of like always goes like this, where it's just like really tough to get it going, and then things settle down at some point and you get it going. Hopefully that's the case here, but like man, they're about out of time.
Oh.
What makes me nervous about that is that there will be a new system next year because Pete Carmichael, there's no way he's the offensive coordinator next year. There's no way Dennis Allen's the head coach. No way. So if Carr is having trouble this year because it's a new system, if we bring in somebody next year and it's a new system, is he going to have trouble next year? Like that can't be it, right? So he has to get it figured out. I do think there is time and there is hope. I do think this is like one of those things where if someone does come in with a better system and they can kind of coach speak Carr, kind of like how Gruden did, get the best out of Carr. I think he does have what it takes to be at least average, which is all we're really asking right now. All we're really asking is for him to be average.
I was about to say that rings pretty hollow right now, Nick. Just wait another year for Derek Carr.
It's about to be November, and you're trying to figure out how to make your quarterback fit. It's kind of impossible at this point. But yeah, if this doesn't work, they're kind of screwed a little bit. Like, I don't know what you do. I mean, I guess you got to hope that it's bad enough that you can draft a quarterback that can make a difference. I mean, that's really the only way out of it at that point, because you kind of got to pay them, and it has to work. I mean, there just really isn't a plan B at this point.
I mean, imagine drafting a first-round quarterback. One day the Saints will do it again. I think 50 years is a long enough time. Like, I think probably after 50 years we can go ahead and justify another first round.
I think this year, this is the year.
I mean,
this has to be the
That's
year.
wild. I mean, it doesn't even sound real.
Nick, what about so depressing fact of the day here on Off the Bench was Jake finding out that Dennis Allen, what is it, Jake?
9th worst winning percentage in NFL history as far as head coaches.
9th?
Again, I don't understand how this information is new to these people. Like how many weeks ago were we talking? It might have been the off season. Dennis Allen has been a horrific head coach his entire career. Never has had a season over 500. Never. Like whatever it is, 18-42. I mean, this guy cannot do it. And he is our head coach, and he was our head coach last year. People get fired after like 10-win seasons. People get fired after making the playoffs too many years in a row and not getting further. And this guy somehow has a job as whatever he said, the top 10 worst winning percentage in NFL head coaching history. Great coordinator, no doubt about it. But I got bad news for y'all. He's not a coordinator. He's a head coach. So it doesn't matter that he's a great defensive coordinator. You know, if I'm flying a plane and I'm like, I'm a great chef. So well, that doesn't really help me here. You're flying a plane. Dennis can be a great defensive coordinator somewhere else. But right now he's our head coach, and all that coordinator stuff does not help. We've got to get him out of there. We got to get Dingus 2 Pete Carmichael out of there. I mean, the team, this whole thing is just very depressing. It's very depressing and how bad it's gotten, how fast it's. I mean, it's just. I was telling somebody the other day. You always hear about fights in stadiums, and you hear about people screaming and yelling at each other, and it's just not a fun atmosphere. You always see videos of fights in the stands or whatever. And I've always said, like, I've been going to Saints games for a long time. I've been going to Saints games every home game for a while now, and I never saw any of that. I never ever saw fights. I never saw people screaming at each other. I never saw. It was always like good times and people just having fun. The Jaguars game was not that way. The Jaguars game, I saw fans screaming at each other, Saints fans screaming at each other. I had a bunch of friends who went to the game, and they all said the same thing. Every single person sitting in different sections, they were like, yep, there were fights in my area. People were yelling at each other. People getting escorted out. Yep, people threw drinks on each other. Yep, people were throwing stuff on the field. It has soured the dome. It has soured the experience of the fan.
Worst in NFL history. I sit here and I clown Josh McDaniels almost daily. Where's McDaniels on that list?
31.
31.
Adam Gase is 38th.
Adam Gase is 38th. The Saints could have had Doug Peterson, a Super Bowl. What drugs did we all take to convince ourselves that this was a smart move? It feels insane now.
It does, but look,
Well, I can sit here and say I didn't. I can sit here and say I said fire Dennis Allen and Pete Carmichael last season. I saw these numbers and I said, hey guys, did y'all notice that Dennis Allen's never had a 500 winning season? Have y'all noticed this guy might not be the answer? I was screaming. And everyone else said, no, he's our guy. He's a Saint. He's a Saint guy. He's, give him the chance. And yeah, T-Bob's right. Like, looking back, I'm sure they do feel quite foolish.
Don't make me say this in public, man. like at the time, no, I mean just like at the time, like I don't want to like defend anyone, but like or the thought process. But at the time when they hired him, like I thought it made sense. Like you had a guy.
I did too. To be fair, I did as well. But
you had a top tier coordinator. He was getting interviews with other teams. It felt like he had turned things around. If he had learned his lessons from the first stint, like it felt like that was the right position to be in. And I still think there's a world, like if he gets a good offensive coordinator, this all works. Like I think he's that good of a defensive coach. I think he just needs someone that can run the offense. And
that part I agree with. I think if Dennis Allen was the head coach and a Mike McDaniel type or a brilliant guy, a Kyle Shanahan type is your offensive coordinator, Ben Johnson, whoever, Eric Bieniemy, if they're there, I think they can do enough of the play calling and the scheming and the game planning. I think that is what he needs. Like a Josh McDaniels is the OC, whatever. But the problem is you pair him with Pete Carmichael, who gives him absolutely no support there. We covered this before, where we lost Sean Payton and Drew Brees. That is the best head coach in our team history, best quarterback in our team history, one of the greatest offensive coaches in NFL history. We lost them both within 2 years. Both are offensive holes. We did not replace anything. So we have a Sean Payton-sized hole and a Drew Brees-sized hole. And Drew Brees, I mean like offensively, like what he was doing at the line, how he was operating, not like his position, but just like basically a coach on the field. And the answer to that was Pete Carmichael. It's obvious that Pete Carmichael cannot do that. So we still have a Sean Payton filled hole or sized hole and a Drew Brees sized hole. And it's going to take a wonder. It's going to take a wonder kid. It's going to take a Mike McDaniel or a Sean McVay or a Kyle Shanahan. The next group of that. It's going to take someone like that to fix it. Because you can't have someone like Pete Carmichael or Dennis Allen or a defensive guy. You can't have those guys come in and try and fix something they don't know. You know, so the Saints tried to fix the situation with just the wrong answer.
You look at Sean's tenure, like Sean, when he didn't have the right defensive coordinator, it was a disaster too. Like he couldn't run the defense. He had bad ideas on defense. He tried to change things that made their defense objectively worse.
Yes.
He kind of needed Dennis Allen to get his tenure back on track after 16. And, you know, they turned it around because he had good coaches around him. I just don't think that they've been able to get a good coach on offense. I think it can still work, but I mean, look, DA has to exonerate himself from this. And sitting here now looking at it, it's like, yeah, could they have made a different decision? And you know, I think the answer, it's impossible to defend anything that's going on right now. It's 2 years of disappointment. I mean, the one thing I would say is that they are sitting at 3-4. Like, it does feel like 1-6 right now, but it is 3-4. Like, it's not completely lost. They aren't going the right direction though, so it feels much, much worse. But
the record thing, it's not completely lost if they start winning. If they rattle off like a 5-1 stretch, okay, sure. But if we just kind of lose one, win one, lose one, win one, it is lost. We are at the razor's edge. I'll tell you all this right now. If we don't beat Indy, we're not winning 10 games. You can go ahead and write that. You can go ahead and write that down. So then, but the only way we win 9 games is if we beat Detroit, the Rams at LA, or the Vikings at Minnesota. So let's say you drop those 3, okay? You drop those 3 and the Colts game, then when we have 8 losses, then you got to win out. Yeah, we're 3-4, and that's Indy, then the 3. So then we're 3-8. So then you're talking about winning out just to kind of be around 500. So we're right there. We're on that razor's edge where if we don't rattle off 6 wins, you know, if we don't really put the pedal to the metal, before you know it, the season will be over and we will be a 6-win team.
They got to figure it out quickly. And yeah, I mean, you look, Doug Peterson, he was someone that you know, maybe should have been a more serious candidate, but I can't sit here and say that I think the thought process to hire DA was crazy, because like I legitimately truly thought at the time, like, yeah, like this is the right idea. And every time you got an interview going somewhere, it was like, damn, like if they lose this guy, it would be so bad for the franchise. And if you're kind of thinking about someone that way, I don't know, like it makes sense to me to give him a shot, because
the problem wasn't DA. The problem is that they didn't give DA any help. If you told me like, would you rather have Dennis Allen or not? I would say, yeah, well, I would much rather have Dennis Allen. But you have to know, and that's Loomis's job. He has to know, okay, Dennis is a defensive guy. We are losing Sean Payton. We have to go get an offensive mind. We have to go get a specialist. We have to get the best offensive coordinator in the NFL. We have to go get them. Where are they? Who is it? Exhaust your search. Loomis just had too much faith in Carmichael. Bottom line. And the Carmichael-Allen combination is putrid. It is putrid. Just like Nick said, when Sean was the head coach and there was no Dennis Allen, we had the 28th, 29th worst defense. And offense can cover up a lot of those mistakes, but that's why we had 7-win seasons with Drew Brees and Sean Payton, because our defense was terrible. it's just much more obvious to right now because the offense is terrible. It's much more obvious to when an offense is bad because that's what people know. That's what people pay attention to. So it's just right now. It's one of those things where every decision that we could have made was wrong, and we're paying for it. And I hate to always go back to Pete Carmichael, but the decision to have him as the OC after last year and after Sean, knowing what Dennis Allen was, a defensive coordinator posing as a head coach, knowing that's going to basically shut the window on the Saints. That's going to shut that decision is going to shut the window on the Saints, and we are going to have to rebuild. That's what's going to eventually happen. We may be able to coast with Carr if we get a new scheme in here and a new coach and a new philosophy or whatever, but we are in the Indianapolis Colts loss away from being a whole, like, if we lose to the Colts, I want y'all to really grasp how important this is. If we lose to the Colts, Allen's getting fired, Carmichael's getting fired. So you're talking about new head coach, new defensive coordinator, new offensive coordinator, and then you're a year-ish, 2 years away from replacing Carr. So now you're talking about new head coach, new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator, and new franchise quarterback. And that's if you hit on the first draft pick. There is about to be a lot of transition, a lot of rebuild with this franchise. And that's not even counting if Loomis goes somewhere. What if Loomis retires? What if he retires in the next 2 years, 3 years? Then we're going to replace a head coach, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, GM, and a quarterback? Better strap in, ladies and gentlemen. It could get bumpy.
If you do let him out the building, and he did learn those lessons, and he becomes a great coach, then they're idiots, and you're talking about him like he's Dan Campbell. Plus, because he actually coaches the side of the ball, too. And then you're just an idiot for not seeing it. So it's kind of like you saw the potential. You kind of got to find out. And you can always fire someone and hire someone else and fix a mistake. But if you let them leave, you can't fix that mistake.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, it's again where
But coaches are the only position in the world where someone can be complete garbage, but then someone says maybe they learned their lesson. Maybe they'll improve. Like, no one ever says that about a quarterback. No one sees Josh Rosen get released and someone say, maybe he's learned his lesson about not throwing interceptions. Maybe if we sign him and let him be our quarterback, maybe then he'll be a superstar. What if he goes somewhere else and he's a superstar? What if then? What if we miss the boat? Like, you don't see a running back average 2 yards a carry, fumbling all over the place, get released, and then a team say, I bet he learned his 2.8 yards a carry problem. I bet he learned that he doesn't need to do that anymore. I bet he got over his fumbling problem. This guy could be the next Barry Sanders if he doesn't do all that. Like, why are coaches immune to that? Why are coaches immune to, wow, this guy has the 9th worst coaching record in history? Maybe he's learned his lessons. Totally ignoring the fact that he's 20 games under 500 as the head coach. When does that, it blows my mind. It's okay to say a coach is ass. It's okay to say a coach is not good at his job. A UPS driver gets fired for dropping boxes and wrecking his car. FedEx isn't going to hire him and say, I bet he learned his lesson. No, maybe he's just a terrible driver. Maybe he's just a terrible employee.
Agree with you. Like, at the time, and I agreed with you. At the time, there were a lot of good-sounding reasons, but I'll be damned if it doesn't just feel like we were wrong.
We were wrong. They were wrong. I wasn't wrong.
I wasn't wrong with that.
I've never been wrong.
And you can
Not
logic
once.
your way into a lot of things, but I feel like I tried to logic myself into thinking that this skunk don't stink, but it smells pretty bad from where I sit right now. Like you said, though, it's 3-4. It's the NFL. You're only a little bit of a heater away from getting it fixed. So
you better get hot.
Inject a bit of sunshine, even though you may be hesitant to want to do so. What reasons are there for maybe hoping that the offense can get this figured out?
The best thing I can tell you, the best, I mean, I don't know. I was gonna trying to think of something, but I got nothing. I got no positives. Why would I think? What would make me think that the offense is just going to all of a sudden click? The scheme is broken. The players hate each other. The communication is off. They're changing how meetings are being held. Chris Olave is treating Veterans Boulevard and Kenner like Talladega Super Speedway. This team is like, it's every single thing you can think of. If they fix the scheme, cool. Now you got to fix the fact that the team hates each other and that the communication is a problem. If you fix the communication issue, cool. The scheme is ass. Like, oh, and Alvin Kamara's sick. He's not playing this Sunday. Sweet. That should help. Cool. So now Tony Jones Jr. is going to all of a sudden get 15 catches. Like, I mean, I guess the positive that it's only 4 quarters. It can only last a certain amount of time. So, I mean, a positive is that it's at noon, so it's earlier in the day, so you get the rest of your Sunday. I mean, what is a positive?
I don't think there are any, man. Yeah, I don't.
I mean, is Trevor Penning done? Does Trevor Penning never even like play? Like what? It's just crazy.
I think they're going to try to find a way to get him in there. But like, yeah, to answer the question before, like, I don't know. Like right now, it's kind of like if you start talking about things they could do on offense, it's like you're the guy that goes out and golfs 90 and like, man, it could have been a 78. Like,
yeah,
no, dude, you shot 90. Like, you got to believe that you shot 90, and you got to do the things to fix it. So that's kind of where they're at. And that's the thing. Like after this last game, like the story I wrote is that them kind of coming back is probably the worst thing that could have happened to them, because it allows them to sit in place and kind of think like, we're a missed field goal and a drop pass away from being 5-2. And it's like, you aren't. Like, you know, you look at it the other way and you're that close to having 1 win, no wins. Like, that's just kind of how the NFL is. But unfortunately, like, we've heard that thought process too many times out of that building. We're like, like, man, we were so close to this and that. And it's like, yeah, like you had the double doink in London last year, but like, what does that really change? So I think they got to show us, like, there is no reason to believe in anything. There's no reason to have hope. There's no reason to think that like anyone's going to turn anything around until they actually do. It's been 2 years of this, and kind of the benefit of doubt, I think, is long gone.
Yeah, it should be
at this point. So
it should have been going after last season. It should have been going after last season with Carmichael and Allen. I understand, and look. I got wrapped up in it too. I thought Carr was going to come in and be average or above average, and I thought he was going to fix a lot of the problems, but it hasn't been the case. Okay, hasn't been the case.
I have no reasons for sunshine. Like, my forecast is clouds and rain right now until something else shows up.
I mean, so they've toyed with a couple of different ideas on the offensive line, then actually gone out there and done, like, Andrews Pete playing tackle or whatever the situation might have been. Like, can Trevor Penning kick down and play guard? Like, I mean, he's a first-round pick. I mean, we've seen him at times, you know, be a little bit of a mauler. Now,
I'll tell you this too. Controversial opinion. I think if we had the best offensive line in the NFL, all-star team of offensive line, I don't think it changes anything. I think our offense is that bad. I don't think it changes anything at all. It doesn't change Carr checking down all the time. It doesn't change Carr throwing the ball out of bounds. It doesn't change Olave running the wrong routes. It doesn't change any of that stuff. So I hate the conversations about Trevor Penning or what move the right guard here. The problems are bigger. The problems are like, I mean, if like, guys, answer in the comments below. Let's pretend we had the best offensive line in the NFL. What do you think our record is? Which games do we win? Which games does a better offensive line change Derek Carr? Which games do a better offensive line completely change Pete Carmichael's scheme and game plan and play calling?
Certainly not been consistent. I mean, can they do anything with him to get him on the field? I mean, you have a first-round pick that's sitting there watching guys play out of position.
I think that's probably something that ends up happening, you know, over the offseason next year or something. Man, if he ends up at guard, though, like, that's kind of like an abject disaster at that point. Like, you traded that pick.
It's Robert Gallery from the Raiders back in the day.
Well, and
it's not that bad. It's not that bad.
You got rid of Teron Armstead. I mean, you try. Like,
and Robert Gallery, I think, went second overall. So I mean, it's not Robert Gallery.
And you've never recovered from that.
Yeah, and you know, it's just, you made a trade for a guard like that. That's just such a horrible result. Like, I don't want to. I kind of hope they don't fold on it this quick. Like, I think you kind of got to go through an offseason and see where it is, and then at that point, if that's where you're at and that's what you got to do, fine. Like, okay, but man, that would just be such a complete disaster. And I don't know if he has the skill set to do it either. Like, he just, I don't know. I don't really see anything there right now that says he should be on the field. The last time we saw him, he was coming off the bench. He came in and gave up like 10 pressures. I mean, that's a tough situation to come in off the sideline after you've been benched. Your head might not be in it. You're a young guy. Like, I get it, but I don't know, man. If he has to move there, that's such a bad outcome. They already had it happen with Pete once, like twice drafting a tackle that can't play tackle. That's kind of like a damning position to be in.
It is. Yes, I agree with everything you said, but it's also, would you rather a first-round pick play guard or a first-round pick watch?
Yeah. Yeah, no,
yeah, I agree.
Something
so
out
it's
of it.
like your pride takes a hit. It sucks, and we know NFL GMs are the most prideful people maybe in sports, but like just sitting there and watching Andrews Pete get run by time and time again.
I mean, so speaking of personnel decisions, though, Nick, is it crazy to kind of be upset with the kicking decisions? I mean,
T-Bob must be Will Lutz's best friend. I mean, Will Lutz must send T-Bob a gift basket every single week. I thought for a second when he started saying personnel decisions, saying whatever, I thought in my head, I was like, no way are we going back to this. No way are we going back to the kicking game. And lo and behold, here we are. Ladies and gentlemen. Answer in the comments below. If we had Will Lutz, how many games do you think we would have won? What would our record be? What would be the impact of Will Lutz? If we had peak prime Adam Vinatieri, what would our record be? What would the result? What would it change? If we had Adam Vinatieri and peak Morton Anderson and peak Jay Feely and peak Justin Tucker and peak Mike Vanderjagt, if we had all of those field goal kickers on the same team, what would it have changed? What would it have changed? I'll give you one. It would be more impactful if we had Thomas Morstead punting still than if we had Will Lutz kicking still. Our punting game is much worse than our field goal kicking game. I cannot believe. I really want to stop the video. I really want to stop the video because I don't even want to hear the answers because I'm going to get so riled up. But we're gonna listen.
Groupie and Headley just don't seem to be doing well.
Headley is terrible. Headley has been terrible. Headley's been terrible. But again with Groupie, let me say this again for louder people in the back. Blake Groupie, obviously, when he missed the 2 kicks against Houston, that was awful. Yes, we all know that for sure. But when you have the opportunity to trade a old kicker who's coming off of a 76% kick rate, you have a chance to trade him for a draft pick. You do that every single time. And if Groupie doesn't work out, Go draft another kicker or sign another kicker. But you didn't lose anything trading Lutz. You didn't lose. If you keep Lutz, more than likely, he's kicking the same percentage or worse. Lutz, last year, like imagine right now, we're 3-4. We're a laughingstock. We're completely broken. And the talking point I'm listening to right now is that maybe we should have held on to our 76% field goal percentage kicker.
Headley right now is averaging 4.05 seconds of hang time per punt. The next guy above him, that's the lowest in the league. Lowest number in the league.
He's struggling.
Guy above him is at 4.3 seconds. I mean, it's just
he is struggling bad.
Yeah, you aren't even in the same vicinity. And then you keep scrolling up the list, and there's Thomas Morstead sitting at 4.65 seconds, having one of the best seasons of his career. And it's just like you knew he was injured.
Do I know the game or do I know the game, ladies and gentlemen? Am I on a whole nother level or am I on a whole nother level? These cats are out here talking about Groupie and Lutz. I'm just ripping. Boom. Thomas Morstead. Rather, he's more impactful. Bam. Then we get a stat straight from Nicholas about Thomas Morstead. Look, we're 40 plus minutes into this video, so I can say whatever I want, basically. I'm so Mucinex up out of my mind, Claritin D up out of my mind, have been all week, heavily medicated, and the brain is still firing. The amount of pressure built up in my forehead right now, absolutely stunning, absolutely shocking levels of pressure. Can't hear out of my left ear. We're throwing this stuff out there, no notes at all. All I've got is some Kleenex over here. I got this water bottle right here, no notes. I got this Xbox controller that's off. No notes at all. Just boom. Thomas Morstead. Bam. Been holding in sniffles for 45 minutes during this video. Where's the brain at? Is the brain at sinus pressure? Is the brain at mucus levels? No. The brain is at, boom. Thomas Morstead would be a bigger switch for Headley than Lutz for Groupie.
Maybe you should rush him out of the building that quickly.
Wow.
And look, hang time isn't everything, but like even his average is bottom 3 in the league. I think his net is bottom 10 in the league, and they've been covering these punts like fantastically. That's the only reason they're getting away with this right now. But you hit a 39-yarder with the game on the line. I at least, and I'm shocked. Like the easiest thing they could have done to show like action this week, and maybe they still do it. There's a couple days they're off today. Maybe they can do it tomorrow when they're back at work. Would have been like to bring in punters and kickers to at least just visually tell some story of like, okay, we aren't sitting still. Like we're doing something. Maybe you don't want to fire somebody on the coaching staff. Fine. Maybe you don't want to make a major change, but like the punter seems to be like the easiest way to just, you don't even have to cut them. Just have these tryouts, like do something. Like I'm shocked by it.
The inactivity at this point is maddening.
And yeah, look, I understand the thought process on Groupie. Those guys look neck and neck throughout the whole entire camp. I get that decision, but at the same time, like he's looking shaky. He hits the upright on an extra point, and and kicker's such a week-to-week thing. There's variances.
Yeah,
Lutz has already missed. He missed his first week there, but just to see him hit 4+1 from 52 to win the game, while your guys kind of struggling a little bit. Just
don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, 2 weeks ago, NFC Special Teams Player of the Week.
I don't know, the juxtaposition of that is just kind of tough to look at right now. So definitely possible they got them both wrong. I understand the kicker one. The punter one, though, like the thing we kept saying the whole time is
like, what if you juxtapose Will Lutz missing an extra point and a field goal to lose week 1 in Denver? What if you juxtapose that with Blake Groupie winning the NFC Special Teams Player of the Week? If you juxtapose those and you say we traded this one, the one that missed the extra point and the field goal, if we traded that for a draft pick and we decided to hold on to the NFC Special Teams Player of the Week, if you juxtapose that, it looks like a brilliant decision. You can't like, I hate that. I hate how it's like he makes his first 9 out of 10 kicks and then he misses a couple and it's like, damn, I knew this kid was garbage. When the whole time he's making all these kicks, you're not saying a word. When the whole time he's winning Special Team Player of the Week, you're not saying a word. But the second he misses a kick, all of a sudden it's like, man, I wish we had 75% Lutz. Man, I'd kill to watch Lutz miss field goals in the dome. We didn't cut Justin Tucker. We cut 76% Will Lutz. Or we didn't even cut him. We traded him. Who trades for a kicker? Who cares?
Like they don't have a punter. Like they got 2 guys here, but they need to look for somebody else somewhere else. And they just haven't done that. Like they haven't even tried anyone out, and it's shocking to me.
And I don't know why. I mean, NFL kicker and punter is like the old MTV show Next. Like you
roll them in. Who cares?
Next at them, and they go off the bus, and you bring somebody else in. Like
at least he's gonna get some cash.
That's what it is. Like I remember.
And let me get that straight. I don't care if Groupie's the kicker. I don't care if he's cut tomorrow and bring in another guy. All I'm saying is to say that the decision to trade Lutz and keep Groupie was bad is wrong. I'm not saying Groupie's going to end up being a great kicker. Lutz isn't going to end up being a great kicker. Get rid of him. Bring someone else in. But to keep rolling out this whole Lutz should be the kicker, we should have never traded, that to me is absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely insane.
For like every Monday we had really good ones with the Chargers, like 2 Pro Bowl guys, but every Monday they were out there, kickers and punters, trying out.
And it's like the same 6 or 7 guys too.
Yeah.
Like it kind of feels like they roll up in the next bus and they just walk off one at a time.
Yeah,
like,
same with closers.
Every time you look at the transaction sheet, like it's just like there's the block of the kickers, there's the block of the punters. They're all in the same place. Like they probably all see each other in the same town, and they just don't come to New Orleans. It's not part of the tour. Like the tour skips over here. It goes from like Miami to Houston. Like they haven't stopped here in like 2 years. And yeah, that used to be a thing with Sean. Like Sean would try him out all the time. Someone would hit an upright, miss a kick. The kickers were in here just to send the message, hey, like next one, you're out of here. And I think that pressure is good in situations like that. I know both these guys are young or whatever, but like that's not an excuse. Well, they're both rookies. Headley isn't young, but
yeah,
that's not an excuse. Like they gotta perform. And a 39-yard punt in crunch time seems like a reason to audition other people.
Yeah,
wow,
agreed. And he's been bad the entire year. Long video. Wow, that was long. Sorry about that. Let me know in the comments below. I'm not sorry about entertaining the masses for almost an hour, even though I'm sinusitis up out of my mind right now, ladies and gentlemen. I might need a steroid shot. My God. Let me know in the comments below what you think about the entire conversation. It's just no one is doing what we're doing. I will see you on the next video.